Turn off the light on the way out.
We're
and I'll
live.
get the hint one day.
We are live.
Am I?
You're live.
I'm live. Hi everybody. Hi everybody. Now this right here, I'll just start off with this. I'm Steve Austin for one. I already told the people here. I am now president. I'd rather be historian, but I am president of the International Association of Silver Art Collectors, and club's been around since 1985. Ed Lance, founder of it, he's still alive. He lives in Springfield, Tennessee. Just a little, since we're so close, right over in Chattanooga, East Ridge in November. That's where the Tennessee State Show is going to be, November 11th through 13th. And our Isaac 37th convention is going to be there also. We're going to table have a bunch of people there. Ed's going to be there. A lot of the old timers, including possibly Wally from up in Caledonia, Wisconsin. He's 93. He's going to try to come down. So a lot of the new people, we're going to have a lot of folks come in. So that's going to be fun. If you guys can make it, anybody can make it, it would be great.
It's going to be in Lebanon, Tennessee.
It's the Chattanooga East Ridge, right down the road, about 20 miles right down 75 here at East Ridge, right there at Camp Jordan. And coinzip.com is a good resource. I should put down there coinzip.com to check out coin shows and see where they're at and what's not. But anyways, International Association of Silver Art Collectors, only reference list that I put there, that is the one that is thesilverbugle.org. And anyhow, that is the club, and a lot of the members just really like to share. Like I said, there's a lot of fellowship and a lot of information. And that's the main reason why I wanted to do an intro and an overview, not just of the genres. I did have timelines, but I had to shave that because I didn't want to have you guys here for a couple-week course like you were in college or something, have to test you and stuff. But so I had to shave the timelines. I would have been way, way over. But wanted to go over this basically because, like I was saying, when I started, I didn't know all the different categories that you could go into, and some of them are extremely interesting, and they help with the other ones with your learning and connections between a mint that might have done a poured piece versus a bar versus a round versus pressed, etc. And even, as we'll see later, a few individuals that did cross genres, and actually really even the father of one or two of them, so to speak. So, and then you run into with anything, whether it's your nickels, whether it's your dimes, or cents or whatever, and or those, you have to have references, you have to know what they are, who to talk to, who to find out, who to reach out to. And I might have my expertise with certain things the best I can, but then you run into other people, like Richard Brestek, that when it comes to PAMP, he writes articles, he knows. So that's who you reach out to for that. And this guy for this, and different people have researched, have different areas that they were interested in, so they have found a little bit of information. So that's always good to know. Some of that is on there as well. I put some Facebook groups. The Silver Bars and Art Collectibles one is mine. It has about 7,500 members. It's for art collectible stuff. And it's private, so like people from your neighborhood that aren't in the group cannot see what's going on and possibly rob you.
Right.
So it's a private group. I expected about 50, 60 people in it 5 years ago. I started, I have 7,500. But it's just a free group, but it's just sales information, just sharing information, whole community stuff. And then on Instagram, there's a big community. There's a few people on there. Tommy Haynes, stacking.nyc. He actually in Lancaster now because of COVID, but great guy for the community. He's done more for this hobby as far as the community and the fellowship in the last 4 or 5 years than probably anybody in the last 20, 30 years. He's a fantastic guy. But anyways, the importance of this is exactly that. You want to be able to find the information you need, and when you're trying to figure out if you want to get into something, you at least have to be able to look it up and get some information before you can make that decision at all. Okay? So anyways, with that, a lot of people when they say silver art collecting, think about the art bars, then the rounds, then the pours, and then they kind of get muddled after that. So I want to kind of go through some different areas that people collect. Some obviously get to higher levels like museum pieces and stuff like that, and a lot of people like me will have to be bystanders on that because we're just not in that range, you know. But there's things for everybody, from the low end that are just beautiful because of the workmanship and craftsmanship, all the way up to the high end. And anyways, with a little ripple, I just figured out how to use PowerPoint recently, so I figured out a few transitions. Anyway, shipwreck ingots, sunken treasure pieces. We're all familiar with that to a point. And for example, Mel Fisher and the Tosha, which is also something that's why it's kind of a big deal right now because the Etosha was 1622, so this is the 400th anniversary of Etosha, when it sank. So that actually made a big boom up. So 2, 3, 4 times the price of almost every level of the shipwreck ingots as of now, the actual, the reals and so forth. But not only that, the reals and some of the pieces that came up intact, right? They also, some pieces that were corroded and this and that, they would take and they actually made from that stuff for replicas and this and that with certs that came with it, Mel Fisher's people and whatnot, and made collectibles. Like this set right here can go for, that's just about a 1 ounce piece, and it's from the Etosha and it's all certified and tells what lot number and stuff. But something like that can go anywhere $500, $600, $700 for that one little piece, like that. Even just a piece without any of the paperwork or the box, just that little on its own, can hit 250 or 300. But that's nice. This Johnson Matthey, the company that was a refiner back in the day, they actually got a hold and bought some of the stuff, just like people have with Comstock silver and then made stuff with that, or the strategic stockpile silver, they use stuff that makes stuff. So they did that and made some of these bars, gold and silver, with shipwreck ingots. Like that 5 gram silver shipwreck ingot by Johnson Matthey, that would easily hit $150 or $200. That's a 5 gram silver. Mm-hmm. Very, very collectible. And the same with the Garasopa pieces and so forth and so on. Also, if you notice, 1972 to 1975, right in that range is when the Mel Fisher Etosha. So that's right at 50-year anniversary of that as well. So we're getting hit with a couple things. Not only the 400th of the Etosha, but about the 50th of it coming up and being found. Okay, and then the Garasopa. Also, then you have not only again with the actual pieces that are the Garasopa pieces that were salvaged, that are intact, that look really nice, that bring premiums as far as being original. You also have where people purchased. Like this was, I think, a private net, but they did those pieces, which became very collectible, but they had made with the Garasopa silver. And if I'm not mistaken, the actual United Kingdom, British, some of them actually, they did the Britannia on the Waves because they actually owned, because of some of it, a certain percentage of the silver, but they actually did some coinage and different things, became real collectible as well. So, there's different areas that you can even go, subcategories within just the category of there when you're talking about silver collectibles with shipwreck. And then I'm just, okay. And that's pretty much all I had about the shipwreck. If anybody's particularly interested in that, my go-to would be Jeffrey Behan at Premier Rare Coins down in Florida, if anybody's interested in that. Jeffrey Behan, B-E-H-A-N, I think it is. Yes. Premier Rare Coins. He specializes in that. He's on Instagram under Premier Rare Coins as well. Real nice fellow. Real nice. Real good guy. And but next thing I want to point out is that then people say, hey, like I was talking to you guys here, commemorative halves. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 1892, that we won a World's Fair, so to speak, and we wanted it to be nice and compete because you know how we are, America, we want to do better than other folks as best we can. Everybody wants to show their best, put their best foot forward. So that was a fundraiser, man. 1892, 1893, it was fundraisers for that, and that was what this program was set up for. But see, these are United States Mint coins, right? But they weren't meant to be circulated. These were meant as collectibles. Okay? So some of the coins, how do you have bars? I'm like, yeah. Well, I would consider the commemorative halves a mighty fine silver art collectible set. I think there's about 144 or something in the full set if you go all the varieties. Some of these are pretty reasonable. Some of these you get for like that, maybe $20, $30 for one of these. I think it's 90% silver. But if you hit certain ones, they can hit $3,000 or $4,000 in certain grades and stuff. Mike Gilberg, actually the secretary / treasurer of Isaac, the club, he is actually one of the big authorities on these. He's working on, he has NGC's set already, he's working on his BCGS now. But he is a really good expert. He is a Gibby CPA, and they have I couldn't figure out how to put the link on there, but they have a commemorative half group on Facebook as well that's actually on the verge of possibly being recognized by ANA and stuff. They reached out to try to throw things on it because it's really great. But wanted to point that out, and just the way, like I said, the way it started, you know, they Columbian Expo in Chicago, and it was a fundraiser and so forth. And but as far as general commitments for the United States, this is a nice, reputable book. Mm-hmm. References on there also in the bibliography for you, if I'm not mistaken, unless I goofed up. But that is a nice, solid book. It covers more so than just that, but it does cover it as well. And just people often forget about the coinage. I mean, there are coinage, and people say, well, yeah, but all of it's not silver. Yeah, but you know, everybody likes to take their silver bar, their silver this, and match it up with other varieties, whether it's a bronze variety, or whether it's a gold-plated variety, or enamel variety, or antique variety. So, you know, I mean, hey, it's, you know, there might be some stuff that's different or base metals, but I mean, people just matching that up basically, you know. So, anyways, I just wanted to kind of gloss over that. Liberty Coin Act. That is another thing that made all of this stuff possible. Like back in the back, if you walk into the show here at Blue Ridge, and you head way back towards the back where Robert Calderman is, the note fellow that's helped putting this on, and actually putting this whole program thing together. He's doing his presentation tomorrow at 9. And but right across, kind of right down across from him and one all over is Steve, a real Southern gentleman, and he has a lot of the commemoratives from the United States out there at the box and everything. If it wasn't for Liberty Coin, you wouldn't have a lot of that. Because Ronald Reagan, and this is, like I was talking about anniversaries, it's almost a perfect storm. We have the Etosha one, we have the Etosha coming up, one for 40th anniversary of the Liberty Coin Act now, because that was 1982, Ronald Reagan. So this is the 40th anniversary of that. So now we have all of that out. Then Miles Standish, he is basically the guy that got grading on the map to a point. Actually, one of the first was Will Rossman with the Annex, and he was one of their first groups of graders. He actually was president of Isaacs, you know, some years back. But Miles, he was with PCGS, and then later with NGC. He also did the whole sports card industry and came up with that. He was just been voted one of the top 100 numismatists of all time. But he's a wonderful, wonderful man. He does so much for the community. He has his wife has the Standish Foundation for Children, just wonderful, wonderful people. But he sent me his book, so I figured I would put this up here because it's a heck of a book too. He did the book on the American Eagles. He's one of the top graders of all times. And this does have a forward by Michael Reagan, Ronald Reagan's son, about the Liberty Coin Act.
I thought that's who it was.
Fantastic book, fantastic book. And I'm not just saying that because it was free to me. But no, seriously, Miles is a great guy. We've hung out and just actually we raised some money for the Standish Foundation for Children down in Orlando. Had a great time down there, so that's fantastic. But that is a heck of a book, and it tells a lot about that. And then it goes through these because, again, silver art collectibles. Those were not meant to be spent as money, okay?
Right.
Okay, wrong way. So anyways, going on from there, early non-government assay pieces. Most of us can kind of, even if we never used one, like a notary public, they are an official who, when they stamp it, sign it, it's official, right? And back in the old days, like Billy the Kid days and so forth, they had assayers. People would hit their little fortune or their whatever, and they'd bring it in and they'd check it out, and they would assay it, and they had those type of people, which is similar to that. Anyways, that's what I'm talking about, not the government ones, not the government, but the non-government. And by government kind of fed, but I guess this could fit territorial, they could have like some of the state ones, but anyways, I just want to show a few examples, and I want to use this one as one example, the Thomas Price. Those are a couple that you would think of, and it's kind of smaller, but Thomas Price, he was an assayer, San Francisco. He was born, I guess, in 1862 through 1912, so that range. He was a big-time fellow. This bar right here is about a 2-ouncer. You'll get a better look at it in a moment on the next slide. But that auctioned off a few years back, about, I don't know, 8, 10 years ago, for $16,000 plus buyer premium. So about $20,000 for a 2-ounce silver bar.
Wow.
That's out of my range, not quite out of my range, but out of my range because I don't really want it that much that I'm gonna take it from my buddy Ernie. But yeah, but it's a beautiful, cool piece. The reason that is for assay chips, where they, just like on shipwreck ingots, where they take it, do a true assay to see what the content is, to verify where it came from, what mines, and this, that, the best they can. But that is one example. Right now, I'd say that's worth 35 or 40,000 at this point. This, I am so sorry, but I accidentally put up the reverse of it instead of the obverse, but that is a different Thomas Price piece. I just put the back of it up instead of the front, the reverse to the obverse. But this is a different one that sold back in 2018, went for 8,400, and that is 52.6 or 63.52 grams. So, you know, about 2 ounces of error as well. This one's much better quality. This one was not. Stampings were a little bit off. And and this one was at an actual show, and this net where this one was at through an auction house that it wasn't affiliated with the show. If it was at the same type thing, it probably would have went a little bit higher. This one probably would have went about 12. It's probably worth about 20 now. Do not know who owns that one. Mm-hmm. And sorry about that. I'm so sorry about that. But this one is the price piece that you seen earlier on the left by Ernie, and that's Ernie. And he took this video for me and just get that one. But it's just a beautiful piece, a little bit of Thomas Price. You see some wear, and but that's the serial number, not the year, obviously. But just a beautiful piece, and rich patina, just a beautiful piece. And again, serial number or lot number or something there, not the year on that, because he was what, 1860 or early 1900s. But I just.
Why would they stamp a lot number on it?
Yeah, well, probably a serial number, lot number, or maybe a receipt number. I always thought it would be a receipt number.
Okay.
Almost like a notary public, they have a number like where they're going down like a ledger number.
Right.
That's what I've always thinking.
Okay.
Well, people say lot, but I'm thinking more probably like a receipt number.
Okay.
That's what I believe the United States Assay Office bars also were. Some of them might have been serial numbers, but I think they were intake numbers.
Okay.
Like intake, like if you're keeping up your records.
Right.
I think a lot of that's what that was, honestly.
Okay.
But nobody, I mean, you're having to piece together some of the history here. So you're recreating it the best you can while you're trying to, piece it together like we all have to on certain things that have been lost. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. And this is another one of the famous ones here. This is Harvey Harris, okay? He was another assayer back then around that time, 1870s, 1880s is this piece. This can also be considered a presentation piece because it was to somebody, so on and so on. It did have gold content and silver content in that piece. That was the value at that time, 5-ounce piece. And see, this is the United States Internal Revenue stamp. For a few years, right in this period, I forgot 1870, 1880, I forgot the year, and I'm sorry about that. Tom, a buddy of mine would know. He actually told me one time, and I goofed up and forgot. But they required, the United States government required even the private assayers to do a tax stamp for a few years. That's an important bar right there. And that right there in 2008, 2010 range was about a $15,000 bar.
Wow.
Okay, it does have a little gold content, a little bit. Right now, it probably hit 50. Okay, because of just everything, because of the hobby expansion and and the occurrence rate is so low. I think I've seen one of them since then, and it was David McCarthy from Cavings. So, but that's just a beautiful piece. That was all done by hand, just like a person that might, like a hobo nickel carver, they just happen to do it directly on that instead of onto a die or whatnot back in the day. But that, I would consider that an actual assay bar, but it happens to be kind of crossover with an actual presentation as well. The other, and real quick before I forget, the other one that I would want to mention, but I just didn't want to get into it, I think was Conrad Wiegand, Wiegand. And I think that's how you pronounce it in German. Wiegand is W-I-E, so I think it's Wiegand or Wiegand. But that would be the third major assay of that time that is from around the United States. Okay. This one is another Harvey Harris floor. This is just a very, very cool piece. This has this all C&I piece, which that was actually also used in a gold piece at one time. I do have some references, a few references on some of these. This also is more or less a presentation bar on the side. It has some as well. The Gold Hill piece, it has mixed metal content. Also, it has 0.83 whatever gold and about 90% silver. So again, mixed metal. But again, if you get a piece from the 1800s or early 1900s and it's 999, it's a fantasy piece because they could not purify like that back then.
Yeah.
I mean, they might have had one guy, maybe Merlin. Maybe that's why they thought he was a wizard, right? But not too many, if anybody, could get anywhere near pure back then. But that's just a beautiful piece. That would probably be a $100,000 piece. Now, I think that was 35 to 45 sometime back when that was happening. What was that? Years back.
Is that NT stand for North Territory, Golden Hill? Is that NT that I see?
Oh, what?
No, right below,
Down.
on the right, where it says Golden Hill,
Oh,
right there.
I'm not sure. I never got confirmation on what that stood for. I'm not sure on that. I'm really not sure on what that would be. The Gold Hill was I never got confirmation on exactly what that, possibly a mining district or a mining area. That's what I was thinking about. I never got confirmation on that. Good question though, and I might have to, all of us will probably reach out to Dave at the same time and ask him. He'll say, hey, somebody must have come up with the question. But speaking of that, let's see. Okay, mining and presentation ingots, real similar in the aspect of how some of them look. A lot of the mining would be a little bit cruder to a point. Few of them like Leadville, they did some fancy ones for the fancy people, but the less fancy people had less fancy presentation ingots, as is most things in life. But the 16-to-1 mine, a lot of people remember that through coinage, medallions, token books and stuff a little bit out in Colorado. And these pieces are pretty rare, crude, basically just, it came out the mine, they poured it, they tested it, they checked it out, and then they would stamp it, and it was a mining ingot. Various ones, these, are sold for decent prices. Obviously, those are good prices for stuff that's only a couple ounces. Just some examples, there are many, many examples, there are hundreds, because just think of all the different mines. Just like almost as many of these could show up in the long run. Not like you're gonna find 100 of each. You might find one of these, 3 of these, 5 of this, like you would almost some of the old mining stock certificates, because a lot of the ones had a few of these made, or they made them along the way, got out and stuff. But all of them very low occurrence rate. And the thing is, if one of us get lucky and walked in somewhere and got lucky and found one, it'd be a heck of a piece. Or you could sell it and make some money if that's not your thing. And we all could use that sometime. But for the most part, these are more upper end, top tier, tier 1, almost semi, if not museum pieces. You know? So these are honestly out of a lot of people's price range. But I have known 20, 30 people, just regular people like all of us, have walked into their local coin shop or a show and found something like this for $1.50 above spot, and it turned out to be a $15,000, $20,000 bar.
Wow.
So, I haven't quite got lucky quite like that, but I know a lot of more decent amount of people have.
Mm-hmm.
So you always keep an eye out. If you have the knowledge, buddy of mine, Leland, from up in Anchorage, he walked in and bought an Engelhard bar, 10 ounce, serial number 00001, first Engelhard 10 ounce bar ever. Yeah. And that helped him get a vehicle when he needed a vehicle one time, So you just never know when something could pop up to help you out, So even if you're not into it, it might help you or help you get some money or help a sick family member one day. But this is a Leadville one, and also here's that. If you guys want to snap a picture of that, I think I might have put that on the handout as well, and along with this. But some of these presentation ingots are so fancy. This is a Leadville ingot. This is a real fancy one where they basically went in and did this by hand, and you can't see this as quite as well, but all this is mountains and super duper, almost like the best hobo carvers, not the best hobo carvers. Some of them are amazing as well, but presentation ingots, but to fancier people, to certain people that were a little bit higher up in the community or around the mine, or somebody that donated some land, or important people in the area that did certain things, And So those types of ingots are very, very, very precious. A few people I know, like Justin Fola and people, they've been lucky enough to handle a few of them and actually, deal with a few of them. But I have one that I have to finish getting checked out. It's a more crude one that I'm looking into. I've had a few offers on the one that I have, but I'm not sure that it's legit yet. So I'm not really. That's not going anywhere until it knows it's legit. Now, I don't even know if I want it to go anywhere then. I might hold it for the next 20 years till I'm older, But every once in a while you get lucky, but if you don't know what to look for, you're never gonna find it, never gonna see it when it's sitting there. So if you ever see anything that looks like that,
jump on it.
Yep. Definitely want to do that. And like I said, some people, because if something like that walks in, somebody thinks, paperweight.
Yeah.
And, $150,000, $200,000 paperweight right there for something this big. I think that's probably a 23 ounce, so about that big. So somebody probably think doorstop paperweight or something like that, some old antique iron or something. So yeah, definitely And this book is actually on the handout. This is a nice one. It talks about the mining. Paul Franklin did it. And just a lot like what we were just talking about. This is a nice reference. It's, they're not quite an inch thick, so it's not heavy reading. It's enjoyable reading, though, it is. And it's not just jam-packed with pictures of that. It has it has all this kind of stuff in it. Just well done. But wanted to point out this, our buddy Brett Lawless, who is BL on Instagram. I asked him if it was okay if I could share this. This is his bar, and this is his write-up. This bar was made at the 1876 International Exhibition of Arts, Manufacturers, and Products of Soil and Mine in Philadelphia. Technically the first World's Fair where mines brought ore and fabricated ingots at the fair. The Orford claim was the first major mine of the Comstock Lode and one of the most profitable mines in history. That is a super duper bar. There were a few of them made there. Don't know the exact number, but there are a few other ones.
What would it roughly be worth?
Being that I know Brett, I didn't want to push him to ask him that,
okay.
But if I had to guess, I would say that'd be north of $100,000 easy. I would think with hobby expansion, if we had 1/5 the people that coins do, that would be worth as much as the 1913 V-nickel. That'd be worth over $3 million, in my opinion, if we had anywhere near the numbers that coin people have.
Wow, yeah.
I mean, just the history there, what it is, the occurrence rate, the ability to get something, and then just the history of what it is. I mean, in Comstock, because not only that, you have that, Comstock, Orford, it's just layer after layer of collectability.
Mm-hmm.
It's like getting a bar that is Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Or Coca-Cola, you have the extra layers, just like when I was talking earlier about my Cincinnati Reds, right?
Right.
So you have them extra layers, that just adds more and more people. You have this group and that group and this group, so more collector base. But yeah, he was, Brett shares when he can. He doesn't get to get out and do as much. He's from up around New York, New Jersey area, but great guy, great collector, and tries to share what he can. I mentioned earlier, just a little bit ago, when I was talking about the early pieces, if it's a piece before probably 1930, 1940, I don't know the exact date, this is your man right here. That's his Instagram account. He is on the expert list with Kagan's, and he's just a fine fella. He goes to a lot of coin shows. He has tattoos. You see him in person, you see here. But he's just a real nice fella. Collects the vintage guitars. He's just fun-loving, but brilliant man. But he's willing to take his time with anybody whenever he can. But with any of the old ingots, whether it's the presentation ingots, whether it's the Father Keno ingots we're going to talk about later, any of the mining, any of the early assayers, government or non-government, he is the expert about those. If he doesn't know it, not too many people probably do. But he's a guy, if you ever need to reach out for more detail about some of that stuff, he's the one that can get into the nitty-gritties, But heck of a good guy on top of it. Heck of a good guy. Okay, and then And I started to make that green. I'll explain what this is in a minute. Fantasy ingots. When I say that, most of the time we think, oh man, somebody got ripped off, right? Or it's for fun. Okay. True metal content, what I mean by this is fantasy ingot, true metal content. If, let's say you have an ingot and it's for fun. We've all seen the gold bars that say gold, but they're not gold. They're made out of plastic, or they're made out of silver with gold plating, or whatever, made out of brass, right, with a little gold plating, or fake gold color on their spray paint. So that would be a false content, right? True content means it's an actual bar and it checks out, but something's fishy. And that's kind of what these situations here are. But I put it green as in, but if you see them and you can get them fair, buy them because they're worth so much money. Because as the opposite of something like a pewter paperweight that if you bought it and thought it was important, it turns out to be worth $20. Mm-hmm. If you got these back in the day, even if you were one of the ones that got goofed over a little bit, you still came out really, really good. Okay, so anyway, I wanted to go over that. The Franklin Hoard, basically what happened was back in the 50s, I guess it was. What'd I do?
Don't know.
Oh, there we
There you
go. Back, I guess it was in the 50s, basically what happened was, let's say a couple of us got together and said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to make some bars and we're going to make them look old-timey and we're going to run some fake ads with fake stories in all the trade papers and make them sound like we found this hoard of these old-timey bars from way back in the day, and then we're going to sell them. So these guys made the bars, or had them made, all these different ones, gold, silver, all this stuff, but they had these fake stories, like instead of saying that we just made them, they said, oh, we found this hoard and it was from way back and had all these stories. So they sold these newly made bars as old-timey collectibles worth a lot of money. So obviously the first people they got gypped. They were cheated. So the original story was a bold-faced lie, a scam. They would have been on one of them TV shows about how people run scams on people. That's what it was. But because of them being real content, real rare, because of having the fake story, the news story, and now they're, 70, 75 years old, they're extremely rare, extremely expensive, and some of them are even museum pieces now. We're going to show you a little bit of them a little bit later. Same thing happened with Dennis England pieces, which is a different situation. Same exact thing. He probably heard about that and decided, I'm going to do the same thing. Don't know, never spoke to him, but this happened in the 2008 to 2010, 2011 range, so that wasn't that long ago. But some of the pieces, he did the same thing. Him and his people made X amount of products, very rare of each one, sold them, but everybody thought they were old from like 40, 50, 60 years ago, and so forth, which they weren't. They were like 5 minutes old, so to speak. But right now, some of those pieces, even just 10, 12 years later, are worth so much money. Something that sold like a 3 or 4 ounce bar that back then sold for like $90, worth $4,000 now. The Eaton investments, all of them, but most of them are worth a good bit now. And then the false one, you have pewter paperweights. That's been a problem since the 70s when they came out. Coin World had to put a couple things in Coin World. I mean, people have been saying, oh man, and usually that's by error, because the original ad, I'll show you, it did say pewter, but then as they got out, somebody found them later, they thought they were old-timey. So that's usually by mistake. This was on purpose. You see what I'm saying? So these, again, are pewter, and then we'll get into the Keno ingots in a minute, which these are worth a good bit of money, but they all are meant to deceive. And actually, on your handout, I have a link and a little bit about the Father Keno on there, and you can read on that, and then some non-published information from a friend of mine, Tom. He's a private collector. He's a little bit on the private side, but he owns some of them, and got lab work and a lot of stuff done. So there's some private, where he told me and showed me what happened with his ingots. That's on your handouts back there, and that's unpublished, so you guys have inside scoop where other people don't.
Thank you.
Yeah. And that's always good to have a little inside information. But Tom, he's out of Arizona. He used to be out of Hawaii, but he had so much stuff. We joke around. They made him move because he was going to sink the island. So. But he's a heck of a good guy as well. A heck of a good guy. He's out in Arizona now. But his son, grandkids, that's why they went really out in Arizona. Yeah. But anyways, that is the book that would cover that. These are the pieces. That is a Thorn Mining. That's a fantasy piece. This is what that is. This is the low price. I came in second. Brett, who is Brett BL? He won it, if I'm not mistaken. But that's a few years ago, and that was considered a damaged possibly piece, because see that bottom area where it had all the stuff on it, that's not there. But that might have just been a prototype, because once Brett got it, not only, I mean, it's not been sheared or anything, it was done, so more than likely that is just an even more rare piece. So now that would hit 4,000 or 5,000. I would think either one probably the same range now. But a lot of this stuff, Arizona assay, which there was no Arizona assay, they made that up as well. Okay, but a lot of these, I mean, that's real gold. This is a substantial book. That's about $170 book, if I'm not mistaken. Both passed away, but the amount, that's books 3 inches thick. That's unbelievable. I mean, that is the best bang for the buck of anything I think I've ever bought, including a buffet.
It's a lot of interesting content,
But,
a lot of
it's
information.
a beautiful book. It's well put together. Letters, everything all the way through. It's magnificent.
With the Franklin Hoard, did anybody go to jail or prison over
I
any of that?
don't think so, because it's so much piecing together over the years. So it just kind of unwound a little bit at a time over so long. I don't think anybody ever did. I don't think they ever did. But it's just fantastic. If you ever get a chance, even just to thumb through the book sometime, it's great. It's amazing. The book's as amazing as a story. It really is. It really is. I mean, they should be proud of that book. They should be proud of that book. But that is an example, and that is the foremost reference on that, and it's fantastic. There's also one called, a lot smaller, you can just look it up on the internet. It's called How the West Was Faked. How the West Was Faked. You search it out on the internet, and maybe put silver and gold after, you know how Google does. So How the West Was Faked, that's a nice little read as well. And it's not a couple thousand pages, it's maybe, I don't know, 80. So a nice little read. And I think you can get that for free and just read on the internet, almost like a PDF. But those things are great. And Dennis England pieces. Cool looking pieces. Confederate mining, 1981. But what, 1981? It was from 2009 or something. Same with that Diamond.
The one on the
Depot.
right's really cool
Diamond Depot
looking.
that That's kind of cool though, because that actually, if you held it up on the end,
It's
actually
shaped like a diamond in a ring.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that one.
Like ice cream cone, would that be the top? So that's actually a cool piece. I tried to win one of them recently, and I got beat so bad. I was like the bad stepkid or whatever. I don't know. But this is a list of all the pieces, or most of the pieces that have been linked to Dennis England and his group, or him, or however it was. They did a So Forth Handy and Harmon, which wasn't a Handy and Harmon at all. It had a little chick on it, and just all kinds of stuff like the Eden investment that I just mentioned. That different weights. Like I said, those can go $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a piece. And some of this stuff can get way up there. Some of them are very, very hard. One of the favorite ones, if I can have any one of those, I couldn't find a picture of it, but the hard ass materials. It's just a cool bar. It's about a 10-ounce bar. It says hard ass materials. Has a little donkey jackass on it. It's a cute little cartoon. That's a cute little bar. Yeah. But I don't know if it's $1,000 cute little bar, but I might drop $1,000 on it. If it was a good one, I think I'd drop $1,000 on one probably. But this is a little bit low now. I think that could technically go a little bit higher, but these are still appreciating. Certain ones have went up because you had multiple collectors going after them and needed at the same time when they pop up. But certain ones, there have been a few more. But again, it's a occurrence rate. Like the Eden investment, I've only seen or heard of maybe 2, 3, and 2. I've seen about 8 or 9 of these, and maybe 13 or 14 of these. So occurrence rate, possible mintage, and this and that does play a role, obviously, in valuation as well. But cool pieces, but again, fake story, liars, scam artists, etc., etc. But even if the first people that bought these that got scammed had kept them, they would have been 10, 15, 20 times their money anyways by now in 10 years. Most people would take that, but still you don't want to be scammed by somebody. Right. You know? You don't want to be scammed by somebody regardless. I'd rather somebody say, here's my new stuff, it might be worth a lot of money, and take a chance as opposed to somebody lying to me. But it is what it is, and that is partially why they go up is the story, I think, you know, unfortunately. And, 70 years from now, somebody will probably try it again. Anyways, pure paperweights. Again, thanks to Tom earlier, same guy that with Father Keno. he sent me these files, and that is one of his old papers with genuine pewter paperweights, and you could order them and whatnot. And they were neat. That's what they look like. They just look like old patinaed up ingots. You have these different mining companies and Parsons and Wells Fargo. Anyway, the letter here, Ed Fleshman's from Coin World, he ordered, got a sense of, and then he wrote a nice letter and said thank you, but he sent them back. You know, but I guess he wanted them while he's doing his story and checking it out and doing stuff. And that's kind of neat. And then the articles, but this is from 1970, 75. Wave of Fantasy is Mayfool Collectors. Another look at them, another look at them. So, I mean, since the 70s, these have been bugging collectors because they keep popping up at shows and shops and this and that. Somebody paid $500 or $800 for one or something. It turned out it's a $20 or $10 little pewter ingot. It's a paperweight. It's pretty nice to sit on your desk, but at the end of the day, let your family know when I pass away, don't tell everybody it's worth $1 million, you know? Because these are honestly honest mistakes where the others were meant to deceive, in my opinion, you know, because obviously they meant to sell them as pewter, but then as they got out later, I think that was mainly by error. You know? But cool little bars, they're cool little bars, they're like that. Every once in a while you see a little set, or most of them set on eBay for $80 or $100 when people know what they actually are. But still, nice little set if you know what they are, but you wouldn't want to get out somebody not know. Then the Father Keno Fantasy Ingots. Again, that was the photos. That's from 1787. The photo, Howard Clark, I guess it is. And these ingots, they were reported a lot had 20-30% gold in them, silver, etc., mixed metal, and it had this whole story. I'll put some of the story on there along with some other stuff and a link and whatnot on the handouts. But the whole story, the Father Keno and how he came to the area and the whole thing was just apparently completely made up as well. The whole story, or majority of the story at least. And the ingots were just like, again, if we all just got together and decided to run a scam and come up with a way to make some money and stick it to the folks. But again, so these are very collectible, and they have become worth some money, at least the ones that link to this far back. I think there are a few fantasy ingots where people later on in the last 100 years or so forth have made ones to even look like those, like fantasies of fantasies. But the original ones, they are worth a decent amount now. I think when Tom was telling me, I think they're worth a couple thousand a piece or something, for some of them even 8-10 years ago when we were talking about it in more detail. So again, some stuff that had certain stories to it became collectible, partially because of the story, you know, on top of it, which we all love a little yarn like that every once in a while, as long as we aren't the ones that got ripped off.
Right.
And it's easier to laugh about it when it's 50 or 100 years ago than if it's somebody who's walking around now. Honestly, like that Dennis England, I think that's probably why he don't ever go around anybody in the community. Nobody ever sees him. He's just gone, you know. Somebody probably punch him, I guess. I would. I just wanted to ask him some questions and see about it, but you just never know. And well, anyhow, the next thing I want to get to is getting more into my forte. This is actually mine. This is Tom's, okay? This is mine. And intaglio die art, aka studio art. Intaglio means in reverse, like a die. When you any coin, any die when it's stamped, obviously the die has the mirror image and stamps it on it like your mirror image. Intaglio being in reverse. So if you carve something into a die, they carve it in reverse, and that's intaglio die art. And then studio art means, I guess he termed it because H. Alvin Sharp, he was born in Kentucky like Gavin, and became a merchant marine, went all around the world. He was an engraver, probably one of America's best private engravers of all time. He settled down in New Orleans, loved the life down there, and he opened up a little shop down there, a little studio, and he did stuff like this, little cuff bracelets, slave bracelets with the Jacob Gavin on it. He also did a thing called studio art and whatnot. And that's another piece that's about an ounce, 1.7 ounce, that's an enamel one. And that is a chalice that he made, just all kinds of stuff. But that was, this man right here, H. Alvin Sharp, crossed genre, okay? He was the father of the Mardi Gras doubloon. the whole hobby of the Mardi Gras doubloons wouldn't exist if it wasn't for H. Alvin Sharp. Self-serving, of course, if you're a die maker and you want to get business, hey, let's do some business together. I want to make some stuff for you. The guy says, no, we can't throw stuff like off of a floats at people. You're going to hurt somebody. So Mr. Sharp went back to his studio, made a couple of dies, stamped out a whole bunch of them on the aluminum, the light aluminum things like they throw out in the crowd. He walked in with his arms full of them and just walked in and went, boom, and threw them on the guy. And the guy said, well, I guess nobody will get hurt with those. Let's do it. And that's how they started. And from there, that's how it was born across all the Mardi Gras crews. But H. Alvin Sharp actually came up with the whole idea, again, self-serving, because it made him a lot of money making dies, right? But he was the father of Mardi Gras doubloon. And that whole thing is a hobby. There are guidebooks, there are people that collect Mardi Gras doubloons. Actually, Isaac, International Association of Art Collectors, Judy Drugan, our first secretary back in 1985, that was one of her fortes was the Mardi Gras doubloons, because they do have the silver ones and stuff. And not only that, that is the little, like 1/10 ounce Lafayette Coin Club little silvers about the size of dimes. He did some of those. He did Mardi Gras doubloons, of course, as well, but that isn't that. That is a silver round. Hamilton Mint is that. He also did dies for Hamilton Mint, etc., for rounds and for bars. He did the profiles of the West's dies for Hamilton Mint. And a lot of people are familiar with Silvertown Mint from up in Winchester, Indiana. Leon Hendrickson passed away a few years ago. That was Silvertown. And he was just... he was one of America's greatest numismatists and just an overall good guy for the hobby, for clubs, for anything. But back when he was first starting, he didn't have his presses or anything yet at Silvertown, and he hadn't really had anything. So he actually knew H. Alvin Sharp, and H. Alvin Sharp actually hand carved, my understanding is for free, his first Silvertown old granddad bar die, and Great Lakes Mint actually struck it on theirs because he didn't have his brushes yet. So much crossover with Mr. Sharp, from the art bars to the medallions to the studio art, and then onward to the art bars and everything else. But that is actually a poured ingot, which we're going to get into as well, which he also did poured and stamp. That is a lead progression, like where he would do he would work on the die, and as he's working on the die, he would press it into lead because it wasn't hardened steel yet to see what his design looked like, not in reverse, right? And that is a trial strike. And then this is an art bar with an actual overstrike, and I'll show you something about that in just a bit. But very, very important person in numismatics and multiple genres. Very, very important person. Genius of H. Alvin Sharp. This was actually an insert along with the piece I just showed you, the round on the other, with the St. Patrick's Day piece that they did for Hamilton Mint. This is him cutting dies under his microscope by hand, pretty much like hobo carvers would, except he's doing it in the actual steel die. But that was Mr. Sharp, probably back in 71, 72, somewhere in that range, if I had to guess right there. And this is the one I showed you that looked a lot smaller on the page, the Overstrike. This piece, that's the Yonkers Peace Bar, made in 1973, fairly popular. If you just had that bar that had the peace sign on it and said the Counterstruck one, or Counterstruck 5 on there, he did 5, vintage 5. But if you had the regular bar, it was worth $40, $50, nice little bar. But he made that E.V. Cato stamp. I've never found out exactly who E.V. Cato was. My understanding is he probably, more than likely, was an attorney, a lawyer, and later a judge down in Mississippi, Louisiana area, but a big, big coin collector guy that knew him, a big A&A. Because a lot of the stuff that has his stuff on it has A&A inscriptions, like 1977 A&A, 1979 A&A, a lot of that stuff. So nobody, I've asked, I haven't got to the bottom of that, exactly who E.V. Cato was, but it's a pretty cool piece. Actually, and there's 5 of these. This is actually mine here. One of the 5 is in the Union Planters Bank Money Museum. And then I think I know where two of them are, and then I own two of them. So, and that's my nicer example there. My other one's just a little bit whatever. But anyways, this is an older guidebook, the Wilson guidebook, one of the first three that came out back in the early 70s. And that was the information in that, so I just wanted to show you guys that. It's kind of a cool piece. I actually talked to Annex, he's gonna see if they can actually slab that and do a certification thing on it. That'd be nice to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's a nice look, that's a nice look to me.
yeah, and it's just a really, really wonderful piece of history, being that he's such an important part of our history, you know. And then again, a lot of people don't know you get guidebooks for the Mardi Gras doubloons, but you can. These are the two that you need if you're into that. MardiGrasDoubloons.com. This is also on your list. You guys don't need to write that down. You already have it, I think. Well, the website you might need if you want it, but all this stuff I think I put in the actual bibliography. My wife typed it in for me. She typed it in, I did. But this book here, which was signed, Raphael Monzoon, he has a Facebook group, real nice fella. He's pretty active. This other fellow is a partner, not quite as active with the community because he has other stuff to do. This is his hobby, not his full-timer. This is more his full-timer, okay? But Raphael is a little bit more accessible, but both nice fellows. This guy also pretty nice from what I hear. I've never dealt with him or talked to him. This, though, is more of a retail, where this one's more of a wholesale, because this was meant as a trader's book, so it kind of gave you a reference like that. But if you had both, you could use this as a wholesale one, and this as a wholesale, and this as the retail, and that would be a good pricing. That's about the best way to do it. There are no pictures in it, but you don't really need them. They're organized by the crew, which is the group, and then from there the date, and then the lumen, the colors, the silver ox, etc. So easy to follow, but no pictures, okay, in either. But that's the books you need for that. Then moving into Franklin Mint issues, not necessarily Franklin Mint on its own, but the point of Franklin Mint, whether it's Franklin, Danbury, Lincoln, etc. Some of the early ones in the 60s, a few of them, but they did plates. I mean, think about it. They did ornaments, figurines, bells. I mean, all kinds of neat stuff, bars, rounds, and all of this stuff, even the Bible covers and some of them in solid silver, some of those are just ornate, just beautiful pieces. I mean, this is all silver art collectibles, and some of this predated the 64 to 65 transition away from silver coinage and whatnot. This predated the ability for people to own gold in 1974 legally as individuals. This predated the art bar boom in 73, which actually was 71, 72 if you count. I'll get to it in a few minutes, but Harry Foreman, the late great Harry Foreman, one of the best coin people of all time from around Philadelphia. He was Madison Mint, a lot of people don't know that, but he was one of the people that seen it before other people did, but that's probably what made him so good at what he did to start with, you know what I mean, some of these guys. But this is, Franklin Mint did put out various years, I think it's 77. They did different ones of these, like 77, 80. I think there's maybe at least 7 or 8 different books they did put out. Mm-hmm. A few of them are hard to get, a few of them are easier to get. You can find them on eBay, Amazon every once in a while. But these are useful, they have mintages and whatnot in them. They just wanted to show some stuff like that's Franklin Mint stuff, that's a Rockwell set, just beautiful, beautiful detail, just beautiful Rockwell. And then here's another set they did that had the gemstones. I actually own a set of this. And these gemstones from different jewelers from all over the country. They picked jewelers, and then it had the inserts that told about the jeweler, the jewel, and the whole area and everything. Beautiful collection, beautiful. And that Franklin-Mint-Silver.com, that is not affiliated with Franklin Mint, but it was some collectors like we are that decided, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 years ago to do a website and they compiled. Really, really nice resource, free resource, really nice. They put a nice site together free of charge for everybody. We all obviously appreciate that, you know. But they've done wonderful work. The only thing with Franklin is, I preferred when I started, I go 999. I mean, with the newer stuff, obviously the old stuff, there's no such thing. Right. But some of this stuff is sterling, which sterling is fine. Actually, you can get more detail on that from what I hear because it's the way it works. But I've always kind of shied away from getting too deep into Franklin because if I went into sterling, oh man, that's just another big old rabbit hole for me to go down. It's never ending, you know? So I can't do that. So I kind of stay away from that and at least use that as my fake excuse so I don't have to. right?
Mhm.
But it's beautiful, beautiful stuff. But I do, like I said, I have a few, right? I have a few. And again, beautiful work. That's one of their plates. Some of these are coming in cases with everything about that big, you know, just beautiful, beautiful. And you can get these often for barely over melt nowadays. I mean, the whole thing, I mean, barely. And that's just hard for me to believe, but it's unfortunately the way it is with some of this kind of stuff. And I think some of it's storage. It's hard to store stuff like that, and you don't want to put it up on your wall, and all this stuff matters, you know, when you get into stuff. So stuff with cases sometimes is a little bit more difficult, as I'm sure we've all found out sometimes. And then people don't realize, but just like now, somebody said, hey, Atmex uses, like they can, you know, some of the companies doing coinage for other countries and stuff. And, you know, even countries like Danbury and Franklin stuff, they did that back in the day, you know, whether it was Jamaica, Belize, and whatnot, even stuff for circulation or so forth and so on. So that's nothing new, but it is and has happened for a long time. Some people just forgot about it happening back in the old days. But real beautiful. I actually like some of them. Some of these look pretty nice. But enjoy that as well. And then we're getting really into my forte here. Actually, my first big jump in my knowledge level, as with all of us, is when we bump into some information. And Dwayne Spellman here, he was basically, it happened all over, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, Harry Foreman from up in Pennsylvania area, he was one of the foremost coin people. And just like coin people used to have to they dealt with stamps and this and that in their shops, and now they deal with Pokemon cards and all these other things, sports cards and whatnot as well, and sports memorabilia and whatnot. But Dwayne Spellman, as you see cuckoo clocks and whatever back up in the day in his shop, he was from out in the Simi Valley area out in California, Winnetka, California. Never met him, passed away in 2002, but he actually was the guy that put together United States Silver Corp back in the day in 1973 out in California. He got Harlan White, who was the guy that was San Diego Coin Exchange. You got Ron Gila with Continental Coin Company. Danny Crabb, okay, he was a big time guy out in California. And Gary Fillers from up in Chattanooga, is Chattanooga Coin before Louis Rebel. Louis has passed away now as well. Gary's the one that talked Coca-Cola into doing the 75th anniversary Coca-Cola ingot set, and they worked on that. But all these guys right here were the big time guys at that time. And like Harry Foreman and his group of guys did their stuff, but he got these guys together and kind of got it really going. And this explains how they went over and got it going at United States Silver Corp. But you had groups of the top coin people. Like I hear some of the coin people every once in a while say, "Oh man, coin people don't get it." That's it. No. The top coin people are the ones that did it to start with, you know. Maybe they're the ones with the foresight. Maybe the top ones had a little bit extra money, maybe, you know, I mean, to do something extra. Who knows? Or maybe they just had that extra sight, right, that made them the top to start with. But Dwayne was really instrumental in multiple parts of the country, and then even with our club, when Ed couldn't handle some stuff, because Ed, he kind of got out of it a bit and went into Schwam meat delivery for 20 years. He was a line guy. Ed was our founder of our club, Ed Lance. And Dwayne actually kept the club alive for about 5-6 years during the 90s with his own expense and everything, just helping out with it. But Dwayne was really important because a guy was an era coin guy named Lonesome John Devine. Big time. He's in the Hall of Fame for Conecuh, for the era coin people. He's just passed away as well. But what really brought together was when John Devine moved out to California. John went to his first coin club meeting out there at the Conecuh Valley Coin Club, and guess who he meets? Dwayne Spellman. And the rest was history. Then the next thing, they pull in the rest of these guys, boom, and everything's going. And then Harry Foreman on this side of the country, and Gary Fillers, and Larry Lee, 1913 V-nickel Larry Lee down in Panama City, unfortunately passed away recently. And but he was Southeast Refining. I mean, Larry Lee had train tracks right up to the back of his house where they could load up silver and take it off at the hunt boom, you know? He was one of the biggest guys around. Ethan here, Southern Coin Collectible, he's telling me when he was a kid, his dad, they would go over there and he said, "Don't get hit by a train." But very important people, and a lot of people just aren't aware that the whole hobby as far as silver art bars and all that, that was the top coin people who actually really orchestrated and got that going, you know? And if it wasn't for people like Dwayne, we wouldn't have the hobby today that we have, you know? Then I want to show this, I mentioned that earlier with the Overstrike, the Cato Overstrike. That is the Wilson book. This is the F&F Red book. And this is the first Archie Kidd, Tom Greathouse book. See, this has Tom Greathouse first and then Archie Kidd on the first edition. These were basically the first three, 73, 74, 75, not related to each other, but three different groups of people. And then these never did anything else, but this, Tom stuck with it for a while. He became a dealer. His actual Greathouse production pieces, his art bars, are worth a lot of money. That's one of the most sought after nets. He was a dealer, also a historian, and a pretty strong Christian. He got out of it eventually and went to mission work and stuff like that. I think he's still alive. Archie was a mentor of mine. He was a publisher, a bluegrass man, just in Kentucky, did a few bars, had it minted. He didn't know his own presses or not. But he was just a wonderful fella. He was former president of Isaac and did trustee, did whatever he needed, whatever anybody ever asked of. But he was a publisher by trade, and he helped with that. And at some point, it got transferred to him, and then the second, third, fourth, fifth, etc. editions were under Archie, and he had the rights to those, ISBN, etc. And now his son, Stephen Kidd, has the rights to it. He's Black Tie Productions. He actually is the one that does our newsletter for us now. Or hasn't done. He's more of a broker. But Archie Kidd passed away from COPD 2011, 2012. He was a really, really good man. Really good man. But some of my bars. Yeah, we were just talking about Dwayne Spellman, the Mint. USSC, United States Silver Corp, was that, but his personal, where he was standing at the little shop and he had the stuff on, that was called the Mint Coin Shop in Winnetka, California, which is now Simi Valley area. And under the Mint Coin Shop, he had, well, this is on all of them. I have a good many of the Mint pieces, but as I mentioned earlier, there's the, see, where is it? Pete Rose, there's my Pete Rose. Well, that's not the $375 one, my original birthday one. That one is actually in a slab, Silver Art Collector slab. But this is another one. I actually have another one now. That's the Pete Rose one that I mentioned earlier. But see, the Dodgers and just all kinds of neat ones. Olympics. They even did the KGB chicken, the San Diego chicken. That actually, I had the paperwork because I was looking at the Dwayne's daughter, Lacey. She ended up inheriting her dad's stuff. She never was interested when she was a teenager. She even said she worked at a shop a couple of years ago, saying, whatever, right? It's just dad's stuff and making a few bucks. But after, she got a lot of the stuff she was going through, she started posting some bars on eBay about 2009, and I thought, well, that's weird. And I seen some serial number 2s, which was his personal serial number that he liked. So I got in touch, I introduced myself, and it turned out that it was Dwayne Spellman's daughter, Lacey. And Riches and Lace on eBay. And she puts a couple pieces up. She actually has a canceled USSC Grizzly Bear vintage tin up on auction right now. I think it's about $200. I'm probably in second place now. He's pumping from first to second. Somebody going after it with me. But she's actually a trustee with our club now after all these years. It's funny how things go full circle, But this is part of my collection of the vet stuff, the enamels, the proofs, and whatnot. But just beautiful, beautiful pieces, sports pieces or whatnot. But the actual, she sent me just boxes and boxes of her dad's paperwork. And I learned so much from that. That's where I got, not all of my knowledge, but I'd say a good 15, 20% of what I learned about the hobby came from his paperwork, thanks to him and Lacey, his daughter. And but just beautiful, beautiful stuff. But I actually have the paperwork where he was back and forth. He got in touch with the San Diego Chicken was KGB radio station out there in San Diego. He got in touch with them. They're going to do that. They actually sent him the picture. Got all the way to the part where he got the die made, and then they were going to back out. And I have the letter, and he basically in the letter said, the die's already made. They're going to be done. If you backed out, tough, sue me. But they didn't. But so I actually even have that. But just, it's cool that it was done, and these are real popular. That one right there, that 3, but that's Louise Brown, first test tube baby. It's a stork carrying a test tube. a stork carrying a test tube. Just obviously neat pieces,
Yeah.
all different themes, the PGA,
The Noel.
Way. There's just so much different things and so many different themes, you know. And that's World Cup 1978. That's Muhammad Ali. That's about $400, $500 bar of Muhammad Ali. But just beautiful and just so many different things. And then we were just talking about Thomas Greathouse, the guy with the guidebook, the first one. These are Greathouse production pieces. Him and his wife, Tom, and then his first wife, Nancy Greathouse. I think she did most of the designing, and he did most of the actual business. But these are various Greathouse bars and very low mintage, and as you can see, stuff like Disneyland, Bambi, Donald's 45th, Emmett Kelly, the Clown, Guy Lombardo, Jerry Lewis, John Wayne, Zorro, Earl Flynn, Shirley Temple, Peter Pan, Budweiser, Levi Strauss, a lot of stuff like that. And when you're looking at Peter Pan, and you only had vintage 75, and you're looking at certain things like Goofy and Pinocchio's, when you look at vintages like 30 and 50, I mean, there's some of these that the vintages are really low, like that Cancel Charlie Brown is a vintage 20.
Wow.
So some of it extremely hard. The Huey, Dewey, and Louie, the Donald's 50th, like the 45th, that one, he goes about 180 to 240. This one you get 400 or 500. I think I paid $460 or $470 for my Charlie Brown, but I felt good at that price. I mean, they're rare, and when you start hitting themes like Bambi and Disney and Donald, I mean, you're getting the Disney people going after that, and you're getting the art bar people going after it. You're getting everything going after that. But the thing is, unfortunately, Grace Kelly, Guy Lombardo, people like that, people forgetting them. I mean, the younger people, they don't know who Grace Kelly was. They don't know who, I mean, they knew who Shirley Temple was. They knew who Elvis and Marilyn Monroe, you know, John Wayne, Elvis, right? But Norman Rockwell, but there's some of them that they just don't know anymore. Guy Lombardo, Jimmy Durante, you know, Abbott Costello. Some of the younger people just don't know. So that is affecting some of those prices because these keep going up, but let's say, for example, a Guy Lombardo, he was Dick Clark before Dick Clark. People nowadays don't even remember Dick Clark. They think Ryan Seacrest and some of them guys. So like a Guy Lombardo, 10 years ago, it might go 160. You might get a Guy Lombardo for 90 now, which is sad that people are forgetting. But regardless, that is how things work. That is how that works, unfortunately. And then just a few more things. This one was a Hamilton Mint struck these. And these were official pieces by Austin Nichols Company, Wild Turkey, and they did a set. This was from 1973, 74, I think. But Hamilton Mint did this set, and with Hamilton Mint, their bars are a tad bit longer. Okay, they're a tad bit longer, even though they're ounce. They're just this different size and shape planches, so they don't really fit in standard stuff. So if you can't get the original airtights, it's just a pain. But for something like this, it really wouldn't matter. You just have something made if you had a set like this. And then again with toners or not toners, that's personal preference, just like with coins. Some people like glass white, some people like this, some people like that. But I am real strong about not cleaning these, just like you wouldn't clean your coins, I wouldn't clean these, okay? Unless you're doing conservation. If you had rubber band damage, you had certain things on it, you have to take care of it properly, just like NGC or anybody else would. But short of that, you wouldn't. These are vintage, just like the things I've been showing you were vintage. This is not. This is a newer piece. Chris Geiner from CMG Mint, which is like Tom Greathouse. They didn't have their own striking authority, so they were more of a pseudo mint. Like Tom Greathouse called his Greathouse Productions, which makes sense, right? As opposed to Greathouse Mint, meaning he didn't actually have striking. Tom used Hamilton USSC for a couple bars. Then he used Hamilton Mint for a couple bars. Then he used Zeiser Manufacturing. Then he used Mint of America. Then Worldwide Mint. He used 5 mints. Chris Geiner, that was actually done by Silvertown, and that is one of my favorite modern bars. Not my favorite anymore. My favorite now, well, my favorite now is probably the Barfather bar that somebody did that was a tribute to me, but that's just because it's kind of sentimental. But the bar came out called Apocalyptic Carnival last year. That's just the details crazy. The only guy, Charles Miller from Black and Bouillon, did it. He actually works for He's a chemical guy that, you know, like over in Iraq when they had all the chemical weapons and stuff, like we had to have contractors to go and deal with that. That's what he does for a living. So he did something that's real cool. But short of that, this is probably number 2 on my list. But this Jack Frost, it was just a beautiful piece. And this actually has glitter in it inside the resin. So if you moved it back and forth, it's a beautiful piece. But Chris Geiner produced that a few years back. Vintage was 40. They only did 40 sets of that. And just a really, really, really nice piece, really nice set. But he's a nice fella, a young guy. We've known Chris since he was about 20. He's probably in his mid-30s now. And just not nice young fellow. He's actually a current historian of Isaac now. He's a real, real nice fellow. These are the up-to-date vintage guidebooks for the silver art bars, okay? As you can see, published by Archie Kidd. So, continuation of the pink one from earlier. These are on the reference list as well. These are pretty much the same book. This is the 5th edition. It was put out in 1991. This was put out in 2007, 91, then 2007, 2014, et cetera, et cetera. This, obviously, they changed the covers, and this one, the blue one, it's just all black and white pages. This has a few pages during the Seco mint that has colored, where it has a few enamel bars on the Seco. I think this has 2 or 3 colored pages, but about 95, 99% of the stuff inside is the same.
Is the 5th edition the most current edition?
Okay. 5th edition is the most current vintage edition.
Vintage.
Okay. Which this would cover about 1967 to 1991. Okay, 1967, either one, pretty much same book. 1967 to 1991. Somebody might say 1965 because there's I think 1 or 2 pieces there, 1965. But the early pieces, Foster Company out of Walla Walla, Washington, 1967, 68. That's pretty much where art bars kind of began for the most part. Both of these are pretty much the same. I think on the Great Lakes Mint, a couple of ones, there's a couple, I don't know if they're typos or changes, but color difference and a couple color pages is pretty much it, and the covers. This cover was done by Garrett Burke out of California. He also did the artwork for a red update price guide, which is complete garbage. I don't even show it. It was a disappointment to Archie and everything. He sent out about 30 or 40 things to different historians, different friends of his. He wanted all to do all the pricing, and he was going to take averages. And nobody had time. People did a little bit here, a little bit there, so he didn't really get a good average. So it was just awful. The red one, so I didn't include that. But Garrett did the covers for this, the red one, and the 6th edition, which we'll get to in just a moment, and the 7th edition, which we'll get to in a moment. But those are not the vintage; those are done in groups. On your outline, it has the groups. One's like 65 or 67, 91 was 91 to 2007. One's 2007 to 2020, and one's 2020, and we're within that current cycle. So that's what we're doing with books. This would be cycle 1 of the vintage art bars, which would be like 67 to 91 or 65, 91. And then you move on to the 6th edition, again by Archie Kidd, published by him, 6th edition. This would be a continuation. A few pieces that were added that were just left out of the other one, but this would pick up, supposedly, so to speak, in 2007 and run through 91 and run through 2007. Dwayne Spillman had passed away at this point in time, and Steve Rude, so the information, everything here is not quite there. The pricing, all the pricing's outdated anyways, and all of them, so it's really, you can use it for comparison, vintage to vintage, apples to oranges, so to speak. But this, again, the covers, you can see are real similar, done by Garrett Burke. But this one covers, like I said, from 2007, 91 to 2007, where the 5th left off. And then this one looks similar, but you see it's published by Silver Art Collector. A guy named Tony Krause, who used to live out of Paducah, Kentucky, started silverartcollector.com website. That's on your list already down there. But he did that, and then he just had to get out of it a few years back, had some family issues, and just had to step outside. So he sold the name, the website, everything to Michael Cabrin from out in California. He's MK Bars and Bouillon. Big time with that. Actually getting bigger. He's a real good guy, real good friend of ours too. We just had, full disclosure, we stayed at Mike's house while we were out there for our get together. He's a real good guy, real good friend. But he does a lot for the hobby, you know. And but anyhow, he wanted to put this book together covering the stuff after this, the lower mintage stuff, you know, less than 1,000 mintage. So this one goes from basically 2007 to 2020. Okay. This one you do not want to open in front of kids without going through it, because it does have some nudes and stuff like that, where these really don't at all. They a few things like Crown, they have like basically painted little bikinis and stuff over a couple in there. But this does have that, so you don't open that one around kids. But yeah, it is what it is with that. But at least they didn't put any on the cover. When they first were proving the cover, they figured they accidentally had one nude on. I said, don't have a nude on the cover. So they took that off. They didn't goof up and do that. But they brought Stephen Kidd, Archie's son, in because he's a publisher, and they brought him in because see, Stephen wasn't into art bars. He wasn't into it. He was into music and this and that. But so you couldn't get the 5th and 6th editions anymore. These books they were running $500-600 for a book because they were out of print. So Mike talked to Stephen, brought Stephen in, let him publish and come in on the 7th, and just said, hey, I know you don't want to deal with it, but if you do this, I'll bring you in, we'll hook them all together, but make these available. I'll take care of selling them, and we'll do whatever we have to do. You don't have to do anything. It's a publish. I'll take care of everything, because the community needs to have stuff that doesn't cost $500 for a book, right? So that made it available. So that was nice. They could do that. They're just all working together to try to help the hobby. So, and then these are just old flyers and stuff I thought was kind of cool. That's one of the old Coca-Cola order forms back when I was talking about Gary Fillers, and they did all the 75th anniversary Coca-Cola ingots for all the one. Some of these go extremely high. Nashville, Atlanta, Chattanooga, $35, $45 for that, unless it's a variety that's important, which I'll get into briefly in a moment. But something like Clarksville, the 1 ounce Clarksville silver, it can hit $3,000 for one bar. Mount Hood, set 600 to 800. Springfield, Evansville, 400, 500, 600. I mean, there's a lot of them that hit up in that range. Even the vintage 1200, like Gadsden and certain things, Anniston and some of them, they'll hit 120, 130 sometimes. But really nice collectibles, really nice, you know, people love Coca-Cola stuff, you know, that has a whole collector base by itself, so you have that. But that's nice. Then these, Continental Coin, they actually bought a whole bunch of the strategic stockpile stuff back in the day, and they made stuff, like the shipwreck stuff we were talking about earlier, where they used that. Right. They used some of our strategic stockpile silver from our government stuff in these, and that's cool. People still collect those after all these years. And in rarities, they were out of Anaheim back in the day. They had the contract and did all the Disney rounds and with the gold and silver and all that stuff back in the day. So they had a pretty nice contract with Disney back then. But those are some old flyers and stuff. And then this is some of my poured ingots. That's some of mine, actually. And I like to separate the poured stuff, well, any of it really, but the poured stuff especially in the pre-hunt run-up versus the post-hunt. When the silver got run up to about $50, they tried to corner the market back then and so forth. And because when this was running up, the stuff that was already on the market, it was just getting melted by the barrel, by the barrel, by the barrel. So let's say that good old Jim over there had a bar that was minted in 1976. It might have got melted, but something minted in 1981 might be around. But the big thing when we ran up in 2011-ish that happened again, not quite as bad, but a lot of stuff was melted again. But I like to separate it in those kind of categories. That does help with valuations, and it does match up to occurrence rates a lot. And then, you know, just for all various shapes, sizes, and stuff. But then you go to events and so forth and so on. I do have a reference in there, a couple references. I think the Silver Institute, the Silver Institute won the hallmarks, identifying hallmarks of refineries. That's a good one because it actually has the hallmarks and you can look up, but it's hard to find. But you can find online resources, or if anybody needs it, I do have them on PDF.
I do too.
I'll email them to somebody.
I do too. I've got it on my phone.
Yeah. Okay. Then government assay fees is one to go through that briefly. Silveringots.com, that is on your actual handout as well. Ken Conaway. He's now actually sold his collection to a person who started a private museum. And but these are the San Francisco ingots, actually made at San Francisco Mint, okay? And that's what I was talking about earlier with the intake numbers, like on the end and some of the serial numbers. I believe those are intake receipt numbers, because when the silver come in, they had to account for it and they know where it went into. There are different hallmarks, 1950, 56, etc., different shapes, a few different varieties within the San Francisco, and weights. That is, I ain't gonna say easy yet, but generally a 5-ounce piece like that would go for about $5,000 nowadays. Then the New York acid is a little bit harder to get, in my opinion, a little bit older as well, 1920 ranges, so to speak, on some of those. Then the Philadelphia is very difficult. 27-ounce, really nice one that had a full stamp there, and none is bubbling here. Went for about $27,000 recently. Charles Jonath coined it Podcast. He has that fine example, best one I ever seen. But the Philadelphia one. But that is that, but there are numerous ones of these. I mean, there are hundreds of these, hundreds of these, hundreds of these, so to speak. They're still rare, but as hundreds as opposed to thousands of millions, obviously.
Right.
But only one example of New Orleans has ever been found, and only one example of Denver has ever been found. And I want to show you guys that. But U.S. Mint New Orleans and the U.S. Mint Denver. But only known example and only known example. So value on that, priceless in my opinion, but it is what it is. I wouldn't even have to put a value on a one of a kind.
If those are the only ones that have been found, how many were made?
Nobody even knows. Nobody even knows. But yep, nobody has a clue. It might have been a test, man. I just did one. I mean, that would be amazing, but it's happened before where somebody did one more as a presentation or as just a test piece or something. That's like Blaine Schiff, the board chairman for Pan Show up in Pennsylvania. He had a cube. Like his was San Francisco, but it's the only known with a cube. And it actually got considered A&A in an exhibit right next to the 1913 V-nickel. I mean, it was
really
that important. It was in the exhibit right next to it for a while, and he had it for some time. And I think finally Ken finally purchased it for him, or either Ken purchased it for him for the other guy that they got Ken stuff. I don't know how it exactly went, but I figure it's with the rest of it now. But it was beautiful. It was beautiful, and it's the only known cube as well, which was probably what my theory is back then. Probably a mold company they were getting the molds from. Probably sent them a couple extra ones. They probably gave it a shot to see what it looked like, and didn't do anything. Because I mean that just seemed like why something like that could happen. Not that it did. And then I just wanted to touch a little bit again because we all think about our government and our assay stuff and this and that, but just like with world coins and different things, we have to kind of look around the world sometime. And I just thought it was so neat. The India, Bombay and India, their banking ingots, like the Central Bank of India, back in the 20s, they had some of these. And what really got me on this is when you look at some of this, like it says 999 there, see? But on some of these, it'll say 999, and then it'll have a little stamp next to it where they went in and put a 1 or a 3 or a 5 or a 7. And now that we have technology, this is my collection right here. I'm gonna, once I get a few more of these, which I have a couple more coming.
Those are so cool.
I'm going to get Becky or Bruce or somebody let me use their XFR machine and see how close and accurate all the years ago that if they wanted to go to the 4th place, how accurate they were.
Right.
That'd be nice. But I just think it's just a fantastic story.
Yeah.
But that's also on your thing. You can look that up a little bit. But it's just cool pieces and just a cool thing. And I enjoy it. That's the gateway to Bombay. And
They look neat.
Yeah. And that's one that's being graded over here. And just graded.
I can't quite see. What did they grade it? The one on the far right?
Yeah. It was an MS-61.
61, okay.
I think I have a few that would be a lot nicer. I have some of these that almost look pristine, and that's not mine. I took that off of eBay.
Oh, okay.
I haven't ever sent one in got graded. I didn't know they'd do it till recently.
Okay.
So I have a couple that I might send in and get done with that in mind. I think I might see if I can send one into each one of the graded places.
Yeah.
The ICG, or IG, whatever,
Right,
new one.
I see it.
Annex, PCGS, and if you send one into each one and just have a little collection, I might do that.
Yeah.
But I have a few that are super pristine.
Yeah.
to, I actually see that little spot on that one?
Uh-huh.
That's where that and one of these, I forgot which one it was, the other one had been sitting on that one for so many years, it's a complete, it matches. When you sit
Really?
on top, it matches. One of them was sitting on one of them.
Wow. I guess how old are they?
Okay. Some of these were from the 20s to 40s.
Okay.
1920, 1940.
Uh-huh.
Most of these are in the 50s. Most of these are 1950 and 1960.
Okay.
These are 5 tolus, which is 1.875 troy ounces.
Mm-hmm.
Then they have the 10 tolus, but on the 10 tolus, on this side, on the other side of these is the India. That right there, the map of India.
Mm-hmm.
Where Pakistan wasn't quite as much, so India was bigger. But that's what's on the other side. On the 10 tolus, which is twice the weight,
Mm-hmm.
they have blank reverses.
Okay.
But on the 25 tolus and on the 100 tolus, it's just like this, just the weight difference.
Mm-hmm.
So a 25 tolus, the 25 tolus is 9.375, whatever that is. But yeah, it came from the little tola seeds. That's how they used to weigh stuff with the old scales over there.
Right.
And all that.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, those are the 1.875s. Those are the 5 tolas, and some of these are 5 tolas. That's a 50 grammer, then the 100 grammer, and so forth. That's a 100 grammer, and 5 versus 10 tolas. So different varieties. Then you get into the silver numismatic art collectibles. In other words, they have monetary values on them from countries, but they're not meant to be spent. They're meant as silver numismatic art collectibles. Like back in the day, Gary Phillips hooked up with Coke and Delvin Coke for his Crown Mint, hooked up with Fiji, who has the contract, and they do the Coke stuff now. They did the whole little thing with all the little, I think those are 6 grams each, and they come in the little thing, they have in different ones. Neat little thing. Family Guitar, Pamp did that. Just New Zealand Mint, and Pamp did that as well. That's beautiful. But they do all kinds of stuff. I mean, anything you could think of nowadays. It's just all kinds of stuff for anybody. A lot of this stuff does appreciate, but anytime with new stuff, you never know. Because sometimes it's just the hype. Sometimes you get a big boom right off the bat, and then 3 weeks later, it starts depreciating for the next 2 or 3 years before it bumps up again.
Mm-hmm.
So, sometimes hard to invest in stuff like this, So with this, unless you're a dealer, I'd say kind of get what you like. Don't overpay too much for it. Don't go crazy, but enjoy yourself, and you're probably going to be okay as long as you don't just go crazy and do something kind of nutty, which we all do every once in a while. We all do it every once in a while. And then, I hope everybody's been paying attention, but we also want to and have to include the U.S. Mint and their great silver art collectibles, like the Morgan silver dollar and all the stuff they've been doing the last couple of years, and they get ready to come out with. We can't forget the silver art collectibles that our own fantastic West Point and all of them do, right? Because, think about it. Their presses and stuff, they're about the best of the best. Maybe not as good as CIT now, but it's private that do some of the stuff. But, man, we can't forget them. And sometimes when people are talking about silver art, they start getting narrowed back down to the art bars, which I kind of do sometimes because I love the art bars myself, but because that's what got me into it. But not that if I knew about all this other stuff, I might would have got into it a little bit quicker, And then conclusion basically is with hobby expansion. And see, this is the important thing. If you have the resources and you learn and you share information and you have the knowledge, right? Then if you enjoy the collecting, you can do that. If you're in business, it helps you set up a new avenue of revenue. Let's say there's a fellow out here that doesn't know anything about this, but he knows everything about what he does. He makes X amount of dollars a year. If he can make an extra 1,000, extra 5,000, extra 50,000, extra whatever because he has more knowledge, that adds another avenue of revenue to him. There's a young fellow sitting out the show, not young, but probably 23, 24, and the other day he said, I'm so bored. I said, you finished with everything? He said, yeah. I said, yeah. I said, you know how you can make some money while you're not making money? He said, what? I said, while you're not making money, how you can make some money? He said, how's that? I said, build the hobby. If you have more collectors, you have happy collectors, you have more information, more collectors, more research. For one, if you have more research, more definitive research, people will be more comfortable paying a few bucks more for something. Plus, if you have 5 times more collectors, doesn't that skew supply and demand in your favor? So build the hobby, help out, be a community member, be decent to people. Don't sit over there being done with a scowl on your face. Be out there helping people, mentoring people. That's what helps build the hobby. And in turn, everything in your safe becomes worth more money in that way because the supply and demand's been skewed, okay? So that's important, that is important. And you just have to plug through it, and plug through it, and plug through it. And then you end up with the people. And that's what matters more to me. This is just people in the last year, get-togethers. I mean, get-togethers all over the country, whether it's in Orlando, whether it's in California, whether it's in Pennsylvania. I mean, people all over the place, you know. I mean, just they're getting together, they're sharing information, they're getting together and having dinner. They're getting together and, you know, back in the old days, people sat around like Ward Cleaver on Beaver and Leave It to Beaver with their pipe and a magnifying glass sitting in their study as a coin collector by themselves. But when you can hang out with fantastic people and fantastic friends and enjoy the hobby that has true intrinsic value. I mean, we can go play golf and spend a couple $100, and at the end of the day, we have entertainment value, we have exercise value, but we can have fun, and at the end of the day, we have intrinsic value on top of it. Plus, all the people that help with research and can look up and do all these things and have your back in friendship and fellowship till we get so old we'll forget who each other are, you know? And that's what it's all about. I mean, that's what it's all about, helping each other, learn the hobby, progress through it, whether you're in business or whether you're not in business. Because if you're in business, you should want your customers to be happy. And if you're a collector, that's why I don't play golf. I'm so bad at it. I don't enjoy it, right? So anybody, if you don't enjoy the hobby, you're not going to stick with it. So that's the thing. You just have to mentor, you have to learn, you have to share. And when you find a little discovery, you say, well, wow, that's neat. And then follow the way, you say, wow, that's neat, and you share. And I have people, when I share stuff, they say, man, I appreciate it. I say, I only ask one thing of you. So what's that? So when somebody asks you, share with them. Pass it on, help. And that's just so important. The community, the people, the hobby expansion, that's just so important. But to do that, you have to be able to stick in it. And to do that, you need the knowledge, you need the reference books, and you need to be able to stick in a hobby and not get so overwhelmed that you just have to quit because you're not prepared. And that's, is that it? That might be it. Is that it?
I think so.
I guess that is it then. Anyhow, that would be it then. And I had one other that I had after it. I usually have this one that has a big sign that's yellow and it says, take what you need and give what you can. It has peace, hope, love, and everything on it. Yeah, but I forgot to put that on.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Very good.
And a little overview. I went over an hour, didn't I?
Oh, hell yeah.
I wasn't counting time.
I was. I
I was
timed
just
you.
wondering because I think good old Note. I think he had a pool
Almost
going.
2 hours. It's 4:40.
You went from.
Okay, but it was good. It was interesting.
Yeah, this,
Hour and
I woke
31
up with
minutes.
This cool little thing earlier. Are we still live?
Yummy. Yep, we're going to end it.
Well, appreciate everybody. Yeah, I woke up to a note collector
Tell
on
Gibby
Instagram
bye.
and shared a thing earlier that was basically an over-under pool for me, and he shared a thing saying, I'll show it to you guys in a little bit. It said, when Silver Steve Austin is telling a story and it just
We'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys. Bye, Gibby.
Yeah.
I got a question for you. Where do you think the